Ever since my dad passed on his wisdom and knowledge of winemaking and the tools and the recipes, I knew that in that box was my grandfather's dandelion wine recipe. And for the last 10 years, every spring rolls around and our yard is covered with dandelions. And I say, this is the year I'm making dandelion wine. This was the year Brooke did not let me just dream of dandelion wine or regret not making it. He purposefully did not mow the grass, and we all picked dandelions on my dad's birthday in April. The envelope was stained yellow with markings of coffee and a lot of math. Maybe it was their budget from the 1960s, but it said the Millers for Dad. The glue was somewhat stuck on, and as I opened it back, it was just like reaching back in time. Reading that recipe was exactly what I thought reading a recipe from my grandparents would be like. Simple, from a simple era, nothing complicated. And I'm going to read it to you. I'll link it below, the full recipe, so if you want to make this, there's still time. Plenty of dandelions to pick in early spring. Six quarts of flowers, no stems. 4 quarts of water, 4 pounds of sugar, 2 lemons, sliced, 1 orange, sliced, 2 tablespoons of yeast. Put flowers in a crock, cover with cold water for 3 days and 3 nights. Strain. Add the sugar, lemons, and oranges, and yeast. Yeast must be made into a paste before adding. Let stand 4 days and 4 nights. Strain again and put in a jug. Cover with cheesecloth. Finished. How simple, I thought to myself, and how old-fashioned. A crock, a cheesecloth, a jug. These days we have some more modern conveniences like a wine bucket and a mesh straining bag and glass jars that we call carboys. And all winemaking is following a recipe and sometimes testing the sugar level and the sugar content in it. But this recipe was so simple. I didn't even have to check the sugar content. I just followed it. Let sit for 3 days and 3 nights. How simple. Let sit for 4 days and 4 nights. And it worked. It was wonderful. And when I tasted it as I was racking it, this is what they call it, racking it, taking the juice off of the fruit and putting it in that carboy, it tasted so sweet and delicious. Now, as you may know, if you do make wine, as it ferments, it's going to get a lot stronger. And the more sugar you add at the beginning, the higher the alcohol content. I didn't know that when I first started making wine. I thought the more sugar at the beginning, the sweeter it is. Oh no, absolutely not. So one thing that this recipe did not say was to re-rack it, meaning letting it sit for a couple weeks to let all the yeast fall to the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is, once this sits in my cabinet or my pantry for a couple weeks, it'll start to get clear and you'll see the yeast sediment at the bottom. Then I will re-rack it, meaning I will siphon just that top portion off into a new carboy and let it sit for a couple more weeks. And I'll do this once a month, probably until Christmas. I can't wait to celebrate at Christmas time opening a bottle of dandelion wine with my dad and making new memories and laughing over such a sacred, beautiful drink. Dandelion wine dates back several centuries as a cheap man's wine known in Europe. The tradition continued with settlers in the Great Plains because dandelions grow anywhere and in any condition. Though some may argue that dandelions do have a medicinal effect, which they do, and so some old-timers will take it for medicinal purposes. So whether you are fascinated with making wine from a wheat that grows rampant in your yard, or just tapping into our ancestral ways of making fermented beverages, don't let the process intimidate you. Get out there and pick some dandelions and make this beautiful wine.